Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another early impression. So today I did a live stream and it ended up being on a ranked 7 fragrance countdown to my favorite fragrances from the 1930s. Basically, I used to do a series of video called This Year in Perfume, and I would talk about fragrances from a certain year. Well, I wanted to rank those fragrances, but the very old time fragrances from 100, 90, 100 years ago, I did them in decades because I don't have enough fragrances from the 1931 to do a video on. I've got, one fragrance, let's say, or something like that. So I just compressed the decade together and ranked the whole decade. And somebody on that live stream today said that they thought it would be cool if I reviewed this, or at least talked about it. Cardinal from the House of Zoologist, and their artwork is always pretty cool. This reminds me of I don't know, maybe like a English fellow just got off the tube. They don't ride the subway there, they ride the tube. And, maybe a little Sherlock Holmes. He's about to go do an investigation. His hair's slicked. He's ready to go. Ready to give maybe a dissertation in court, something like that. Maybe he's a detective. And so this one came out in 2022. Came out towards the end of 2022, if I remember. And Zoologist Cardinal is done by a perfumer named Rosendo Mateu. And I did a video to celebrate his life last year in 2022. He unfortunately passed away, and he was a prolific perfumer. He had many big hits, including things like Sybaris, which is right here. He did Sport de Paco Rabanne, which is an amazing sport fragrance. One of my favorite sport flankers. You see the chunk taken out of the bottle here. It's a great fragrance for the warm weather. You can really spray away, and it's got that. All of these have Rosendo Mateu signature is what's amazing. And the one that I think most coincides with Cardinal, believe it or not, I think the one that most coincides with Cardinal is Agua Brava. Now, many people think of Agua Brava and they think cheap because this is a $10 or $15 fragrance now. Nowadays it is. But this is not a cheap fragrance. If you ever find these older boxes that look like this and have the short ingredient list that only say water and fragrance, don't hesitate. I'm telling you, it's worth it. They're amazing. These are amazing creations. And what's really cool about his body of work, and look, it looks like a real wood cap, very cool. The presentation now has gotten much more cheap than these vintage bottles, but I do have some right here. Yeah, and there is a little bit of a connection, and we'll talk a little bit about that. This was an eau de cologne back in the day, and Agua Brava was extremely popular. It was a huge hit. It's still, the fact that it's still around, 1968 it came out. So the fact that it's still around all of these years later shows its staying power and its prominence. But it's a spicy, woody fragrance. And Cardinal by Zoologist is characterized as a green, citrusy fragrance. But I actually think it's more a spicy. I think it's a spicy fragrance. Overall, I think that's its DNA. The core of the DNA of Zoologist Cardinal is the spice, to me. And we'll talk about that. Before we get into kind of my take on it, I've got a 5-hour dry down right here, and I've got about an hour dry down on the inner crux of my elbow. So I got to experience the opening a couple times. And let me read you the blurb. I like reading these blurbs because it's a great way to kind of get insight into what the brand thinks about it, but also the way that they want to portray the scent to the public. And so here's the blurb. Branches lay bare against a gray sky. The gaiety of summer has given way to doldrums of fall, and as winter settles in, flocks take flight, like guests from a dwindling party. But one pair of revelers lingers on. He in crimson finery, she in demure tones. Among tattered streams of copper leaves, they warble a merry duet. Around the cardinal's nest, tinsel icicles may have replaced vibrant blooms of roses, but as they feast on scarlet berries, that dot the snowy landscape, this feathered brood's festive spirit refuses to be chilled. Zoologist Cardinal combines the invigorating scent of bergamot, rose, and rich hints of leather. Tart green notes entwine with handsome undertones to encircle you in a subtle wreath of fragrance. Cloak yourself in this warm, cheerful perfume and a spark of joy on a bleak winter day. Okay, so that's the blurb. The top notes are lemon, bergamot, mandarin green leaves, rose, clary sage, leather, vanilla, oak moss, musk, and patchouli. And so here's kind of my impression of the scent. So when you first spray, it opens up very Hesperidic and green. And that feel, that green feel, really does feel like there is this collage, this green collage of colors and spices. And it really is beautiful, I must admit. The opening is very just naturally enjoyable. There's nothing that will put you off here. Maybe there's a little bit of spice, which we'll get to in just a second, that's not listed. But that is, that is Rosendo Mateu's DNA. He loves the spice. He loves using spice. And it's evident in this fragrance for the first 5 minutes or so. And so, interestingly enough, the green, the green collage of colors that you see here, or see in your mind's eye as you smell, I should say, it really does feel like you're smelling the shadows that maybe a bunch of leaves on a tree would leave on the ground if you're kind of if you're standing there watching the sun shine through a tree, and as it hits certain leaves, it kind of leaves the shadows on the ground, and that's the feel that that the green collage feeling in the opening leaves to me. So the brief is very good. And interestingly enough, they mentioned something about copper leaves, among tattered streamers of copper leaves. And that kind of stuck with me, because I kept thinking about this. Spicy feel, this spices that kind of kept coming to me in the opening both times, except for there's not very many spices listed. I mean, they do have clary sage, but that usually comes across, I think, a little bit more dry and sweaty. The spice that I'm getting is maybe something like a nutmeg, or maybe just a touch of cumin, okay? But don't be afraid. If you're afraid of cumin, if cumin is like a scary note to you, don't be afraid of this, because it really is in the background. I'm really nitpicking here, but I just want to give you guys an idea of the full opening. So imagine this green collage of colors, leaves, leaving shadows on the ground with spice. That's basically the opening. And, it's interesting because, excuse me, Rosendo Mateu did not speak English from my understanding. He was a Spanish perfumer, if I remember correctly, and I heard that he had some problems maybe communicating on exactly what certain creative directors wanted to have done. I don't know if that was the case here, but that's kind of one rumor that I've heard about Rosendo Mateu, that he was very bullheaded and stubborn in his ways, and he liked, has his style, so to speak. And it's the first thing when I smell this is out and out Rosendo Mateu's style. I really feel like you could have put this fragrance in any of his collections previously, and it would have fit right in, because it really is his style through and through. And you have to give him a little bit of credit for sticking to his guns, even to the end. The last perfume he ever made before he passed away, rest in peace, but it was through and through a Rosendo Mateu fragrance. And, there's something to be said about that. I'm sure that creative directors maybe tried to push him this way or that way. He had his style, and God bless him, it worked. You know what I mean? And that's the way that I feel when I wear this. Now, I'm in a privileged position where I can see his previous work. Not many people have, access to discontinued, chypre fragrances like Sybaris lying around. There's a beautiful cumin in here as well, by the way. Paco Rabanne Porhomme has this beautiful oak moss, and there's moss in Cardinal as well. And Aqua Brava, there's a lot of notes that actually share in common, but that's just something that I kind of thought of as I was just letting my brain kind of wander as I broke this scent down, okay? And Parfumo, again, lists Cardinal as a green citrusy perfume. That's what they have listed, green and citrusy. And there is some truth to the green. There is some truth to the citrusy, especially for the first half an hour. The first half an hour, the lemon and the bergamot, and this dash of mandarin orange. For me, the lemon and the bergamot play center stage, and the mandarin orange is kind of third fiddle on the citrus totem pole, if you will. But they all play an important role because they just give across, they give this very just pleasant, opening. I'm not always the biggest orange fan. It has to be done right. Here, it's really done right. It's not overdone, and it adds this extra layer to the citrus feel when you first spray. Because when I think of birds, I don't know about you guys, but when I think of birds, when I think of cardinals, even though the verbiage lists it here as if they're in the snow, icicles, snowy landscape, obviously there's a theme here, right? But when I think of birds, when I think of cardinals, I think of springtime or warmer weather. Now in Texas, it's warm 9 months of the year, so that's not really fair, but I don't see cardinals flying around in the snow in my head, at least not here where I live. I'm sure that happens in other parts of the world, but here I just see them in bright, clean, spring, summery weather. And so the citrus opening does a great job kind of giving me that idea of this freshness, this freedom that birds have, right? It does a great job of that in the opening, but it doesn't last. What does last is the spices. And interestingly enough, I was if you go back, yesterday I reviewed, last night I did an early impression, and that's what this is, by the way. This is an early impression. This is a quick hit video, so my thoughts could change. It's only a 2 ml sample, and I've only, given it 2 wears basically tonight for the very first time. So this is truly an early impression, so my thoughts can change. Take that with a grain of salt. But yesterday I did a video on their newest release called Harvest Mouse is what it's called, Harvest Mouse. And on Harvest Mouse, Victor Wong, the owner of the brand, left a beautiful comment where he took the time to give his creative process. He gave a little breakdown on how he takes that creative process and how he moves forward with it, okay? And what he said that was very interesting is he said that he comes up with an accord, or he comes up with a note or a ingredient or something interesting that he wants to use. Like with Harvest Mouse, it was wheat and beer, CO2 extract or whatever they called it. I can completely see that. And I was trying to think, what is the special ingredient here that Victor Wong wanted to use? Because the notes in this seem fairly common, okay? Lemon, bergamot, mandarin orange, green leaves, rose, clary sage, leather, vanilla, oak moss, musk, and patchouli. There's nothing that really grabs my attention and makes me think that Victor Wong was like, man, I really want to work with clary sage on this one. It's there's nothing really here that's extraordinary, and that is that's where I kind of came up with this idea that I can't really pick out one individual note or a chord or something that makes me think, man, I bet you, Victor Wong really approached Rosendo Mateu and said he wanted him to do this. But whatever the brief was, Rosendo Mateu created it in his style. And that's, I think, the overwhelming takeaway from this is a Rosendo Mateu fragrance through and through. And that's great for his final fragrance because I know he has a lot of fans in his style, but it's modernized, okay? So we're talking about a fragrance, Agua Brava from 1960, what is it, 1968. I'm talking way back in the day. And so even though they share common notes, they're not going to smell exactly the same because you're smelling a fragrance from the 1960s. And then you're comparing it to a fragrance from 2022. And obviously new materials have been used. And as a perfumer who, the only way to stay relevant is to adapt in the perfume world, and Rosendo Mateu definitely adapted. And he, you know, is using the modern materials and all that good stuff. And, you know, some people view synthetics as a bad thing, but actually there's many synthetics that are more expensive than the naturals themselves. And so, you know, it does smell. Don't worry about this smelling too vintage, because it does also have that modern, very wearable kick. To my nose, it does. But it does have his vintage DNA. His DNA was very vintage feeling to me. Just my opinion, okay? And so if you take a look at the notes on Agua Brava, okay, you have lavender, sage, musk, moss, patchouli. Now, in Cardinal, you don't have the lavender. You have the green leaves instead. I think the green leaves kind of works in place of the lavender here. But you have clary sage, you have musk, you have patchouli, and you have moss, right? 4 big notes right there. And the 5th one that really ties the bow on it for me is the leather. There's a leather accord in both the Agua Brava and in Cardinal. And so you can just see his style. I mean, through and through. You know, this is a Rosendo Mateu fragrance, as I've said, and it feels that way. You know how you take some perfumers and maybe they had like one style early on and they had another style in the later end parts of their career. Rosendo Mateu just had his style to me. And yes, things did obviously change periodically, but that DNA, the core of what the DNA is, really feels like it's solid here. And that's a very interesting observation for a niche fragrance for a guy that's been perfuming for 50 years or whatever it was, right? And the one thing that's interesting, though, one thing I noticed is in Agua Brava that you can really smell. I've got a little bit here on a blotter. Yeah, you can really smell. You can smell the pine. Okay, so there's this green pine accord, and when I was getting to do some research on this fragrance, a couple people told me that there were some reviewers who came out and said that there is a big similarity to Polo Green, which is a huge pine leather fragrance. And I just think that's preposterous. This doesn't smell anything like Polo Green. However, it does smell like a vintage perfume, but just not Polo Green to me. Some of Rosendo Mateu's vintage fragrances, like Agua Brava, yes, absolutely. It's got little bits and pieces of his past signature, but it doesn't smell like Polo Green to me. And you know, it is very interesting though, because that opening has such a pleasant citrus combination with those green leaves, and you can almost see the collage of green colors kind of coming through, right? It really feels like you're looking at a bird sitting on a beautiful tree through the leaves, you know? And it's bright and it's sunny. But then, as the fragrance dries down, there's more and more of this winter theme imagery that kind of tends to come forward. So if you ever see bottles of this, you'll see that they took a lot of pictures of this like in the snow. And if you take a look at some of the imagery here, like I said, it says the Cardinal's nest tinsel, around the Cardinal's nest, tinsel icicles may have replaced vibrant blossoms. Icicles. And scarlet berries dot the snowy landscape. Snowy landscape. And look at the picture that they chose for the inside. See it? Tell me that doesn't look Christmassy. The pine cone, the blanket. You know, they've got this blanket right here, like you're going to wrap yourself up because it's cold. And there is this festive holiday theme going on with the fragrance. And I think, I don't know if there's a color. Did I see a color photo of this, or was I losing my mind? But I think maybe there was a color photo I saw or maybe it was the red bottle. I was thinking about red. they had a special edition bottle that's red. The glass itself is red. And it does give me this holiday theme that the marketing was kind of going for, right? And to be fair, there is that vanilla, which adds a little bit of warmth, and there's that leather, which, really feels like it's not the leather that I talk about and love, like from Bel Ami and stuff like that. It's not that. It's completely different. This is more of a supple, soft leather. This is not the harsh animalic leathers that I go crazy for. This is the soft, enveloping, it's not a leather jacket. It's maybe more like a comfortable leather couch that you've owned for 30 years, or your leather lazy boy and it's yours, your imprint is in that chair. You know what I mean? And the reason I say that is because there's something personal about the leather. It's not that it's simple, because it's not a simple leather, but it's yours. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that harshness to it, but it's yours. And that's the way that the leather feels to me. And as the fragrance dries down, you will get more and more of that warmth of vanilla, and the leather kind of come through with that soft musk. It's a warm, soothing kind of dry down with that vanilla and a little bit of patchouli. And you still get little bits and pieces of the greenness here and there, probably from the patchouli, but not like you did in the opening. The opening with that green leaves imagery kind of goes away. Almost like you're watching the Cardinal day after day as the seasons change, and you're watching him go from that, summer nest to fall to winter. That's kind of the changing of the seasons is what it feels like. As the fragrance dries down. And it is very beautiful. I don't know if, I don't know if this type of fragrance would be enough for me to want to go buy a bottle. But it's enough for me to be appreciative, especially since it's Rosendo Mateu's last fragrance. Unless he has something else coming out I don't know about, unless he has some other things that put aside that his estate comes out with later on. But from my understanding, it's his last fragrance. And so that makes it special. And, it's a great way to honor his legacy, because it really does stick to his DNA. I mean, if you've never smelled Agua Brava, and you've never smelled Sport de Paco Rabanne, and you've never smelled Sybaris, and, what else did he do? He did a ton of stuff. He did that Rosendo Mateu No. 5 that everyone goes crazy about. He did Paco Rabanne XS Pour Homme, which Creed basically copied. Creed copied with Himalaya, for example. There were so many hits that he had that if you know his style, he did Cajal Homme, which I've never smelled. But he did 212 Men for Carolina Herrera in 1999. He did Herrera for Men from 1991. I love that one. This one right here. I completely forgot about that. Yes, that's right. So this is a Rosendo Mateu creation, Herrera for Men. And so if you like his style, yes, absolutely. If you like his style, I think you'll like Cardinal. It's it's one of those fragrances that gives a nod to the past, but it's definitely modern. It feels modern to me. Let's put it that way. When I smell this, I can pick out his DNA because I'm aware of it. But if you've never smelled his DNA, you'll think that this is a modern, niche fragrance. And it's very well executed. He's a great perfumer. So hats off to him and Victor Wong for creating this. Would I buy a bottle? No. But I could totally see why people really like it. It's just not my cup of tea right now with where I'm at in my personal journey. Maybe when Tiger comes out, it'll be more... Victor Wong's next release is called Tiger, I believe. It's coming out in the middle of 2023. And that's one I can't wait to... That sounds like it's going to be more up my alley, more challenging, more aggressive. And so I'm into the brand, and there's so many for me to review and talk about. That's what makes it so interesting. I've got, probably 20 fragrances from the brand still to talk about on the channel. So there's going to be more, but I would love to hear you guys' feedback. If you've smelled Cardinal, let me know what you think. If you think my review is on the button, if you think I'm way off, if you agree, disagree, you love Rosendo Mateu style, if you hate it, if you love the brand of Zoologist, if you hate it, anything, I'm always open to hearing your thoughts. I love the interaction with you guys. Do leave a comment, and I try to respond personally to every single comment. And, so far I've been able to do that. I've decided it's time to finally buy some new equipment too. I can't keep doing this on my phone. During the live streams, the audio kind of gets all wonky sometimes. So there will be some upgrades to the channel. But to those of you who watch purely for the content and who are here, for the real fraghead content, I really feel like I have a fragrance family in you guys. So I love the back and forth. I've often said I learn more from you than you do from me. And I'm not very good at self-promotion, but I did remember to say now, please do leave a like and a comment and a subscription if you're not subscribed. It does help with the algorithms and all that stuff, although that's not what I'm here for. But I figure if people like a video, then they'll like it on their own, or they'll leave a comment on their own, or they'll subscribe on their own. They don't need to be told that, but I very much appreciate the back and forth. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Cheers. See you next time. Bye-bye.